Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I am joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how are you?
I'm doing good, Henry. It's been a fantastic year last year for in terms of comics, and I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys about comics.
Indeed, indeed. We are joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing well. I had a great holiday, and I would like to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year indeed. You can catch the Comic Sauce Podcast online at Comic Sauce Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Today is January 7th, 2022. And today we're going to take a look back on the year that was 2021, little year in review. And to do that, I'm going to kick it over to Porfirio. Porfirio, take it away.
Thanks, Henry. So yeah, 2021 was a really good year for us geeks. 2020, because of COVID, we kind of got robbed of going to the movies, and everything was shown online on streaming services. And so yeah, we had to learn and adapt. But 2021 was a different year. Things opened up, people got vaccinated. We went back to the movie theaters, and we went back to midnight premieres and Comic Con and all that fun stuff. Um, but this year, we were really spoiled when it came to comic book movies, TV shows, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
And so yeah, let's talk about some of our favorite comic book TV shows that came out this year. What
sure.
were you guys' some of your guys' favorites?
Invincible.
That show made a big splash. Like a lot of people who had no idea what Invincible was, including myself, really
Me
found
too.
out a lot about this, a lot about it, and the show was very interesting.
Yeah, I think I actually okay, so I don't think I ever put my opinion on that because I think I missed that episode, but I loved that show. Invincible was really freaking awesome. Yeah, like I remember like that first episode, I didn't expect like what was gonna happen. I didn't expect anything from Invincible. Let me just say that. Like I didn't watch a trailer or anything, but I just heard people saying like you have to check it out. And so I went into the show completely point blank, and it just blew my mind. That very first episode, like figuratively, not literally, like the show.
Cool. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I would say I liked it, but didn't love it. But Christian, are you saying this is your show of the year, essentially?
Overall, I think in terms of all shows that I've watched this year, I wouldn't say so. But I think in terms of like comic book related like shows, definitely. I think Invincible like was pretty hard hitting
Mhm.
with its like brutal action sequences. I thought that like the characters were really well done. Um, and like I loved the classic 2D animation.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
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 I had a lot of fun with Invincible.
yeah.
It,
Good
it
call
it
out.
it really did have a star eight list like
Ah,
cast.
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. A lot of the Walking Dead cast did voices, which is cool because
Mhm.
it's a Kirkman property. So yeah, I think animation in general was pretty cool this year, and a lot of the voice talent was top notch.
Yeah, for sure. And and while we're still on talks of Invincible, I think they're gonna start production soon for season two. So I doubt it's gonna come out this year, but they're gonna be doing it eventually. I think, and didn't it also get approved for season three also?
Probably. It's been a while, so I don't remember hearing about it,
Well, I
but
wouldn't
I wouldn't be
uh
surprised.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. What about you, Henry? What's one of your favorite TV shows that came out this year?
Well, good segue, I guess, because I had mentioned how a lot of cool animation came out. So yes,
Mhm.
Invincible released. What If also came out. But the real standout for me was Star Wars Visions. Were you guys able to check this one out? The Disney Plus
Yeah.
show?
Henry, not to like burst your bubble. I kind of stopped, I think, after episode 3 or even 2.
Okay, fair enough.
But like what? Okay, like keep going. What Settle it to me. What did you like about it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to describe, but I loved everything about this show.
Mhm.
So, for me, the problem that Star Wars has had is it's just kind of churned out the same thing over and over and over. You look at all 9 episodes in the movies and the 2 anthology movies. You know, bottom line is they're pretty much the same movie over and over again, you know, with some tweaks here and there, but it's really the same kind of look and feel and the same sort of vibe. This show is like so different from anything we've seen in the Star Wars universe, right? It is straight up Japanese animation, and it doesn't look like Star Wars. It kind of feels like Star Wars, but it kind of doesn't at all at the same time. It's just such an interesting thing to me. Um, and yeah, I alluded to it earlier. There's this really amazing voice cast, and I'm talking about the English dubbing. Um, there's just an amazing voice acting talent group here. And that's just the dubbing, right? There's also, you can watch these shows in the original Japanese language on Disney Plus also, which is super cool. And then it's yet another different experience. And it's actually even further away from the typical Star Wars look and feel and vibe, right? I think I mentioned earlier how I really liked the Mandalorian shows, because finally they started to break away from that like Star Wars formula. And this is like more of that. I think even more so. It's just so different. And it makes me feel good about where Star Wars is headed. It tells me that Disney is willing to do something different with Star Wars rather than just give us the same old stuff over and over again. So, yeah, I can't say enough about Star Wars Visions.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on all those points. Like, yes, I'm tired of the Skywalker drama telenovela that we always see on the big screen, and that's why I think like movies like Rogue One or TV shows like Mandalorian are just a fresh take. And I 100% agree with you on Star Wars. What's it called? Voices, right?
Visions.
Visions.
Yeah,
Visions. Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I love that it shows stories of a larger Star Wars universe, and the graphics are amazing, like these animation graphics and everything. And I think the only thing that fell short for me was just the storyline and plot. But
Got it.
other than that, I give it huge praise.
And
Um,
just to follow up on that, I'm not hating on you too much because you actually don't need to watch the whole series to get something out of this show.
yeah,
Each
yeah,
episode is its
hmm
own thing.
hmm
There isn't like a cohesive story that goes throughout.
yeah,
So you can hop around. Maybe
yeah,
there's like a voice cast on one episode you want to hear from, check out that episode. Or maybe you
yeah,
just see like an image from another and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just check this one out. That looks cool. You can do that. And
hmm
I love the fact that they're like disconnected like that. You
yeah,
don't have
exactly.
to watch the whole season.
Yeah, exactly like what you said. Stories that just tell the Star Wars universe that are not related or whatever. They're just like, small stories or situations that happen within this like different planets with these different sets of characters. But it's great. I do like where it was going. Christian, you said you're also a big fan of it, right?
Yeah. Um, I think when I watched it, it reminded me a lot of like other like anime anthology like movies, like The Animatrix, Batman, Gotham Knight was another one, Halo Legends. Um, but I think what's great about Visions is that like instead of just like truncating all these stories into like 10-minute segment, into smaller segments for a movie, each episode is like a little more time to breathe and like there's more of them and so they can do more. But it felt like much bigger and like much more like each story was a little more fleshed out and there was more of them instead of all being confined into like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. Last point on Visions, um, the most recent Star Wars movie, the last not the Last Jedi,
Rise of
Rise
the
of
Skywalker.
Rise of
Skywalker.
Skywalker. Yeah, sorry. Watching that movie, you could feel all the pressure on that movie, like
Mhm,
pressure from fans, pressure that J.J. Abrams was under, like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, or else the angry fans are going to get on you. And you just felt like the movie was walking on eggshells, and it was just trapped, you know, in this like uh this fan service thing, right?
mhm,
And Star Wars Visions was like a complete 180. Like it was completely free of all of that, right? It
mhm,
didn't have to please anybody. The episodes are all one shots, and it felt like refreshing, right? It was free and easy, and like creatively, like they got to do really whatever they wanted, as long as it fit somewhat into the Star Wars universe. So um, if you're someone like me who was disappointed in episode 9, then check this out. This is like the complete antithesis of episode 9.
yeah, awesome. So one of my favorite, or this is probably my favorite TV show that came out this year, was WandaVision. I think it was the number one Marvel project that I was looking forward to this year. It came out the very first month, and it was still my favorite one this year. Um, I'm a big fan of Scarlet Witch, and I think like for me, WandaVision just told this like unique story or this way of storytelling um the heroes, and the villains and just the whole like psychological um trauma character depth that Scarlet Witch was facing was really, I feel like, something that hadn't been done within a Marvel film, and just the unique way of how they were telling the story with each episode being a different decade in TV history. I thought was really fun and smart. Yeah, I just really much enjoyed it. What did you guys think of that show?
Like it was like the first like big return to the MCU, right? Back
Hmm.
in like December, January. And so like I think after like, like a year plus of just like waiting for something to come out, I was like, "Oh man, I can't wait to see this." And it was such a mystery of like what's going to happen next. That was pretty weird. I didn't expect where this was going.
Hmm.
Um and so I did really enjoy WandaVision. I do remember it. I haven't seen it since it came out. I do remember the last episode I wasn't a big fan of, but I did really like it. And I think looking back on it, I think that it definitely is like one of my favorite. I think the Disney Plus shows that I've seen. I think I like Loki more, but WandaVision is like a very solid like number two
Hmm.
if I were to rank all of them.
Cool. Henry?
Yeah, just real quick, I know we did a recap previously, but it is funny to look back on when WandaVision came out, because I remember it was a really big deal. We basically had next to nothing in terms of new content all of last year. 2020 was pretty dead in terms of TV and movie releases, right? And when WandaVision dropped on Disney Plus, I was legit excited. We were all really excited, right? It was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you guys are talking about, it was very different and kind of difficult to wrap my head around, and yeah, I think ultimately I found it a little uneven. Like Christian, you mentioned the finale was a little bit of a downer. Yeah, I was a little disappointed in the finale, and not to get ahead of myself, but I think the MCU TV shows tended to end sort of poorly in general, like across the board. I'm not sure what's up with that, but I think it was, yeah, there was something in the water there. The ending was a little disappointing on WandaVision, and there was like the beginning. I thought it took some time to get going,
Hmm.
but ultimately I did enjoy it, certainly.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So, what other favorites did we have from this year?
Just in the show category.
Yeah, so far shows.
Okay, so I got one show. The show actually really surprised me. So this isn't actually based on a comic book, but I guess let's continue the animation train going.
Sure.
So it's a show I finished pretty recently, so a bit of recency bias, but the show is Arcane. So it's based on the video game League of Legends,
Hmm.
and which was like really, really, I mean, it's still really popular, but it was like really popular about like 10 years ago, when Porfirio and I were both in college.
Yes.
And that was the game everyone played. I tried it. I hated it. I really don't like that game. I think League of Legends is a terrible game and has a terrible community. But Arcane is fucking awesome. It is like hands down one of the best shows I've ever seen. As beautiful like 3D animation done, I think by Riot themselves. Like they had a big hand. Riot is the studio that made League of Legends. You have like really fleshed out characters. You have a really like creative world that kind of mimics like a Tale of Two Cities, where you have the council in this like steampunky type of world where they're trying to figure out how to work with magic, and then you have your underbelly that is focusing on gang wars. And it only focuses League of Legends is known for a massive cast, but this only really focuses down on like a few characters from the games and really like kind of dives deep into their characters. Like I was like very surprised because video game adaptations are usually terrible,
Hmm.
and but like this is like I think it's actually like in the top like I think it's in the top 20 of like the highest rated like IMDb shows. Take that with a grain of salt, but I'm like not kidding you.
Mhm.
This show is like is amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about that show.
Mhm.
That's cool to
Have,
hear.
have you watched it, Henry?
I have not, no.
Yeah, same. I haven't
Uh,
seen it either, but I've heard many great reviews about that show.
That is, I might ask if we can do an episode on it at some point in the future. It's
We
only
might
one
have to.
season, and it's pretty short. It goes by really fast.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good recommendation by Christian.
Totally.
Henry, what about you? What's another TV show you really enjoyed this year?
Well, we kind of touched upon the MCU coming to TV, but maybe we'll get into it a little bit more because, like we were saying, it wasn't just WandaVision, right? We also got Loki and What If and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Hawkeye. So a
Hmm.
ton of MCU content on Disney Plus. And yeah, I was really curious as to how this stuff was gonna turn out. Um, as it was, I think it was a little uneven, it was, some of it was great, some of it was good, some of it was just kind of okay. Ultimately, I did like all these shows, some more than others. um yeah, we did a Falcon and Winter Soldier episode earlier in the year, and I did voice my stamp of approval. Definitely enjoyed it a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I keep thinking about this finale drop off. Like maybe we should address this a little bit because I felt like it happened on WandaVision. I felt like it happened on Falcon and Winter Soldier. I felt like it kind of happened on What If. I felt like it happened on Hawkeye. Maybe not so much Loki. I did like the way Loki ended. But like what's going on with with these MCU shows? Like I said, I enjoyed them all. Some of them I really liked. I would say Hawkeye and Falcon and Winter Soldier I liked particularly. I think they're among my favorite TV shows of the year. But yeah, like just the way a lot of these shows ended, just I don't know, they didn't really stick the landing, I think. So I don't know, maybe something that they can work on for the future, perhaps.
Yeah, it's always with the last episode too. Like
Yeah.
like part of me is thinking that like I think the shows just in general bite off more than they can chew in terms of like characters and like story developments. Um and so like and they've always, and I think because they're miniseries and not like full on seasons of shows, they feel like they have to wrap up everything in the last episode,
Yeah.
as well as the fact that they always feel like they take it way too long to get going, you know? Um
Mhm.
like Falcon and Winter Soldier, I do give a bit of a pass. I think that there was a lot of like troubles behind the scenes with like story developments that they originally planned that they couldn't use because of the pandemic, so they probably made them scramble a bit. Um, but like I think there's probably just like too many characters and they bite off more than they can chew, and they have to have a lot of action because I think that's kind of what you're expecting when you have a comic book show or movie is you want a big bang and a finale. And I think part of what makes Loki work so well is that like it kind of narrows everything down. It puts its focus like into just the three characters of, the two Lokis and Kang,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it narrows its focus way down, and it like puts a lot of stock into just those characters and those that scene with just focusing on those interactions instead of like, oh yeah, we have to resolve the Flag Smashers, we have to resolve John Walker, we have to resolve um the let's see, Bucky and Falcon stories, and like the other side characters. They all have to tie everything up in a nice, neat little bow
Yeah.
so they can set up for the movie.
That's the weird part though. With the MCU, you really don't need to have that closure because everything's connected. It will continue on, right? So why do they feel this need to have this like huge like action finale in every last episode? It just yeah, it felt a little forced at times.
Mhm.
Um, my last little note on MCU on TV is Hawkeye. I think we're planning to do a recap episode, so we probably don't need to get super deep into it.
Mhm.
But man, I was really enjoying the show. I think the ending, like I've been saying, was disappointing because it was very ridiculous, I think. But yeah, kind of up to that point, it was like perfect. It really tapped into like this holiday spirit, and this whole idea of Hawkeye just wanting to get home to his family by Christmas was really great. And the Kate Bishop character is a lot of fun. And yeah, it was like a real feel good TV show. And yeah, the double whammy of Hawkeye and No Way Home to finish the year on, oh man, it warmed my heart. It really
Yeah,
did.
during
So
the holidays when
yeah, like
during
yeah, the
vacation mode.
timing was like
Mhm.
impeccable for all that.
No, yeah, same. Without going too much into Hawkeye or not giving out anything away, um, Yeah, Hawkeye was really like for me like a sleeper hit. Like I just expected it to be like kind of like a goofy like TV show, because that's what the trailer was always presenting and
Yeah.
stuff. But it just turned out to be really great and fun, um and we talked in the past about like this like uh concept of fan service and everything. I feel like Hawkeye kind of played with it, but in a smart and fun way that was really enjoyable.
Yeah. They went with comedy, a lot of comedy on the show,
Yeah.
and I felt the comedic moments really worked.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So before moving on to the next section, so is there a top movie that you guys want to talk about, or top TV show that you guys want to talk about?
Hmm.
Henry?
Well, I think I've listed mine. Star Wars Visions is my show of the year, which
Okay.
I'm still surprised at because at a year where we got all these new Marvel shows, I was like expecting the list to be all Marvel shows. Like it's not a matter of like what's number one. It's like what's the ranking of the five MCU shows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like as that's what I was expecting. I was not expecting to pick a Star Wars animated TV show to be my show of the year, but guess what? It is. I think it's that good.
Okay, hang on, Christian.
Yay,
Before
anime.
Yes,
before answering Christian, I just want to ask Henry one more question. Have you checked out Book of Boba Fett yet?
I have. I am caught up. Episodes 1 and 2. So you
And
want to get my like quick
yeah,
initial
quick
reaction?
initial reaction compared to everything we've already said, about like Star Wars and what we like and don't like about it.
Yeah. So here's my quick take, and it is in line with what I said earlier. So when The Mandalorian dropped, it was super refreshing. A lot like what I'm saying about Star Wars Visions, taking Star Wars into a completely new direction, right? Love The Mandalorian. Season 1, especially because it was just so fresh and new. Still enjoyed season 2. And then, of course, we got Book of Boba Fett, right? So what I'm seeing here is, at least so far, we're just 2 episodes in, right? But what I'm seeing so far is the exact same look, feel, and vibe as The Mandalorian. I feel like I'm getting what I wasn't getting out of the movies, right? I was
Mhm.
getting like the same stuff, right? So to me, the Book of Boba Fett is completely unnecessary. I don't need to watch this show. Just watch The Mandalorian. Like The Mandalorian to me is like the better version of the Boba Fett show.
Mhm.
So again, 2 episodes in, I don't want to trash it too much, but that's how I feel about it so far. I feel like it's just totally unnecessary.
And there you go. You
Yeah.
heard it from Henry.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Like, I do like the idea that it's like, oh, they're kind of. I guess it's from the general premise, no like episode spoilers, but it does feel like they're like following up on like the crime boss deal that you saw with him in the Mandalorian. And I like the idea of like Star Wars crime. I think that's a fun like aspect to take Boba Fett in of like him
Mhm.
as a crime boss, and you have like it's almost like a bit of like there's like a mafia movie feel almost
Mhm.
mixed with Star Wars. Yeah, so far though I do agree I'm not enjoying it as much as Mando, but it's fun, you know.
Yeah.
He's kind of such a beloved character that I'm glad that they're doing him justice, you know, it is for his own show.
Mhm. I agree. So, Christian, yeah, before moving on, what's your favorite TV show of the year? Or did
Yeah,
you already say it?
uh, I did say Arcane. I will say that's definitely my favorite show of the year.
Okay.
Um, let's see. As far as other shows, a lot of I guess I'll just go over two that I've enjoyed that I've been watching recently. Are Witcher season 2 and Cobra Kai. Also a lot of fun. Also on Netflix, I guess. Netflix has been kind of they have sometimes Netflix will put out the worst thing I've ever seen, and it'll put out the best thing I've ever seen.
Mm, yeah.
Very a little uneven, but I guess I like what I like.
Exactly.
There you
They
go.
did also put the one of the worst shows I've ever seen out this year.
Yeah, so as much as good content we got this year, we've also had some bad content. And like Christian said, one of the ones I want to point out that came out this year was on Netflix, which was the live action version of Cowboy Bebop.
Oh
Womp
yes.
womp.
Like I really wanted to have good praise for it. John Cho, he's such a good actor. I love all of his projects and everything. But this TV show just really felt really campy to me. It felt like a live action version of something that could have came out like in the 2000s, like with the costumes and the dialogue, and I was just not living for it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It was like they went a little too far, I think, in trying to adapt the anime, like the look and feel of the anime. And like I think with the animation, especially the old 90s animation, there's such a crispness to it and like there's like a fluidity to it. Um and it just didn't really like work. It felt like they dialed everything up to 11 when like they should have had it at like an 8 or a 9, you know? Like I
Mhm.
really felt like they should have like taken everything about the show and just dialed it back. Um as well as like I think Cowboy Bebop doesn't need to focus too much on an ongoing story. It's not really about that. The original anime is more about like just jobs they do, and you kind of just find out hints along the way. Vicious is never really present in the story until like except for the little bits that you see him, you know. Whereas like they
Yeah.
kind of ruin what made the anime great. I think I remember seeing when saw the trailer, the top comment was this trailer is the definition of mixed feelings.
That's funny.
But now
So
those feelings are not mixed, they're just
they're
bad.
almost all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of negative reaction. The series has been canceled by Netflix, so pretty much no question about it. This show was a failure. Yeah, my quick take on it. I don't think I hated it as much as you guys and as much as most people, but here's the bottom line. I was like marginally enjoying the first couple episodes, and I wanted to watch the whole thing. And just as I continued to watch, my interest sort of faded away and faded away and faded away. And after episode 5, I'm like, okay, I've watched half the season, and I just really don't want to watch anymore. So I ended it. That's where I stopped. So if that's you know a stamp of disapproval. If that isn't a stamp of disapproval, I don't know what is, right? Yeah, definitely a thumbs down. And I think what you guys are saying makes a lot of sense. Like the show tried to be the anime, and you can't be that, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, when you're adapting anything, you have to adapt to the medium you're using, right? If you're adapting comic book into a movie, you want to try to make a good movie. You don't want to make some weird combination of the two, or just try to completely replicate that comic book experience, because it's just you really can't do it, right? So yeah, I think you had mentioned it, Christian. It tried to be the anime show, and you just can't. It's not. It's an impossibility, right? And I think we talk about cool factor on this show a little bit, and that's sort of this like uh, subjective sort of thing. But the cool factor of the anime was completely lost here, right? The anime is just cool, and it's just like the definition of cool, right? And the live action series is just like, as cool as the anime was, this is like not cool, right?
It was the knockoff version.
Exactly. Yeah, it's uncool. So I'll leave it at that. I think it's just a disappointment on a lot of different fronts. And yeah,
Mhm,
I listed some of my low lights of the year, and
mhm.
almost all of them are movies. But there is a TV show on that list, and it is Cowboy Bebop, sadly enough.
Well, yeah. So, what's another? What about you, Christian? Do you have another TV show that was not hitting you so fine this year?
Hmm. Like Cowboy Bebop is definitely like the one I definitely wrote down as like
It was on
the
everybody's
worst. I
list.
yeah, it's far and away the like worst. Like it's let's see. Um I it's kind of hard to remember because I think like I that's the only one that sticks out. I think a lot of times when I a show's not really gelling with me,
Mhm.
I'll just kind of like turn it off and forget about it rather than like stick with it for the most
Oh yeah,
part.
Yep,
yeah. Mhm.
Um, you
same.
know, okay. I guess we'll go into this a little more. Um, but I guess like, you know, I wasn't actually all that big on Hawkeye, believe it or not. So
What?
I
How
think I
dare you?
yeah, like it's like not the it's far from the worst thing I've ever watched. I think that I had a lot of fun watching it, and I think like the Christmas like spirit, it was like that was nice. Um,
Did
that's
you
usually
finish it all?
I did, yeah.
And you still say that?
Yeah, I really didn't like that last episode though.
Okay.
I thought that was like I think of all the series, I think that might have been the most of a mess
Uh-huh.
of a final episode. And
Mhm.
um like I think when I thought about it, like a lot of it just didn't really come together. But I still like there's a lot of elements I enjoyed. Like I see why you guys loved it and like why a lot of other people did. I think like like I think I'm definitely in the minority opinion here. Um, but I think it was like all right, you know,
Well, yeah. We'll dive more deep into that when we do our Hawkeye episode.
yeah.
Uh-huh. What about you, Henry? So besides Cowboy Bebop, was there anything else that was on your list?
Yeah, actually, looking at my list, that was the only TV show on my disappointments of 2021 list. And I think the reason is kind of what Christian is saying. If there was something that I wasn't into, I would just stop watching it and forget about it. It's
Uh-huh.
different with movies because, rarely will I just like stop watching a movie. With a movie, I'll give it its fair share. I'll watch the whole thing. It's only like a 2 hour investment. Whereas with a TV show, to watch a whole season, like, we're talking like 10 hours, etc. So yeah, I can't think of anything that I sat through most of and was disappointed in. Like the stuff that I was disappointed in, I think I just tuned in for an episode and dropped out, and like I can't even remember what they
Mhm.
were really.
Okay, before we move on to the next category of films, two shows I want to point out for they weren't the worst, but like you guys said, they didn't catch my attention was Titans season 3. Just I only say that because like season 1 and 2, like when I got HBO Max, like those were like the first shows I like binge watched and everything. So I was really excited for season 3. And so far, like I'm only like halfway, and I'm not like anxious to like go back and keep watching it. I'm just like, I'll watch it if I have nothing else to watch. So there's not like that sense of urgency for me to go watch and finish Titan season 3. Which is pretty sad because like I said, season 1 and 2 I really enjoyed, but this third season's been a little all over the place.
Interesting.
That one, and then a really huge hit was Amazon's Wheel of Time. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not.
Mm-mm.
No.
I mean, like when I first read about, because Amazon was really promoting this. When I first read the early reviews, they kept saying like comparing it to Game of Thrones, like this is gonna take like a scratch that Game of Thrones itch that you've been craving and stuff. And so I watched it, and then kind of like you, Henry, what you did with Cowboy Bebop, like you weren't impressed, but you just kept watching it to see like if it ever take off and stuff. And it definitely had its moments, but like when the season ended, I was kind of like, eh, I wouldn't recommend
Mm,
it. I'd just be like, if you have nothing else to watch, it'd be a cool show to check out. But I wouldn't say like go out of your way to watch it.
got it.
So that comes to our next category. We're going to the movies. We went back to the movies. We did the midnight premieres and everything. And we've had some good movies and some low movies. But let's start with the highs. So Henry, what was one of your highs for the movies that came out this year?
Yeah, movies came back in a big way in 2021. A lot of movie highlights for sure. Um, let's see. Yeah, one I wanted to call out is Godzilla versus Kong. So this came out quite a while ago now. I think it's maybe a bit forgotten, but I think when it came out this year, it was a really big deal because it was like the first time in a long time people were excited about a new movie, right? Like I said, 2020 was barren, right? And a lot of people watched Godzilla versus Kong. A lot of people had a lot of fun watching this movie, whether it was in the theaters or on HBO Max. And it's it's a really silly movie. It's goofy. It doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of the time, but bottom line is it has awesome monster action and it's just flat out fun. And it may sound a little silly to say this, but um a goofy movie like this, I think it helped a lot of people in this world get through COVID. Like, I mean, COVID is continues to be with us in a big way, but um it's crazy. Just a goofy ass monster movie like this, I think was was like um a dose of mental wellness for all of us. We needed this movie, and it helped get us through some tough times. And yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with it, and it was a great continuation of Godzilla King of the Monsters. And yeah, I had a ton of fun with Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, the movie was a lot of fun. Um, I think like it definitely upped the goofiness factor with
Yeah,
Kong wielding the hammer and
yeah.
like at the center of the entire world and or no, it was an axe.
It was an axe. Yeah.
Yeah, wielding an axe that he got from the center of the world, which he goes back to at the end of the movie and sits on a throne, because he's the King Kong. Um,
Yeah.
the big fight against Mechagodzilla at the end, like the fact that they make the human plot like even like kind of dumber and dumber with each one. Yeah, Godzilla versus Kong, Dawn of Justice was a lot of fun.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah, and just real quick, I know Christian, you're going to talk about Dune, but Dune was on my list of
Mhm.
best, one of the best movies of the year. I watched it on HBO Max, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was quite an experience. And I know we're going to talk about the MCU movie releases also. That was like a tremendous highlight for me. Like just going to the movies to watch new MCU movies, and some of them were experiences that I will never forget. I had some amazing times at the movies this year watching new Marvel movies. But I think we can get into that a little later. What else we got, Porfirio?
Yeah, so Christian, do you want to give us one of your favorite movies of the year?
Yeah, actually, let's talk about Dune some more because Dune's awesome. Like,
Cool.
extremely mesmerizing film. Also on HBO Max, as you said. Um, Also, like, which made me think from that Netflix comic, like HBO Max also put out some of the best movies I've seen this year and some of the worst. Um, but
Yeah.
Dune is, yeah, like Dune Part One, completely like an audio visual feast. I think it really tapped into this really like old and pretty like weird lore of what's gonna happen. Like I forget. I started reading the books, but I totally forgot the year it takes place. But it's so far in the future that people don't really use computers anymore because AI revolted against humans, hundreds of years ago, and they decided that that wasn't. They've evolved past the need for computers. But at the same time, you see like things that have stayed the same in humankind. The fact that they're still like essentially like lords kind of ruling over a lower class, and you have the Fremen who are like the free people of this planet, while like royal houses duke it out over land, essentially like mirroring imperialism, um, but also with a lot of sci-fi coolness in there, you know. And I think Denis Villeneuve, I think is like definitely one of the best like directors around today.
Mhm. Yeah, here's another podcast that I don't think I joined you guys with when we talked Dune, but I enjoyed that one. It was a really good film. Visually, it was just beautiful. Um, so for me, like I have this annoying tendency when like I watch a movie, I kind of like push pause a lot to like go use the restroom or like do some other activity. But Dune is like one of the movies I can remember recently that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like it's was like catching my attention the whole time. Like I just want to sit down through and just like watch it in its entirely. Like it was just really great. The storyline was awesome, and the actors were phenomenal. It was an A-list cast. Yeah, it was an awesome movie.
Right on. Agreed.
Mhm. So glad
The-
they're making part two. Oh man.
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like they had to.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that wasn't a sure thing, but yeah, really great to hear they're doing it.
Yeah. So let's see. For me, one of the movies that stood out to me was surprisingly the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Like, I've said this so many times in our podcast, I feel like, but coming from a Marvel fan, I feel like DC, the Snyder Cut, like, was one of my favorite movies this year above some Marvel movies. And I just really enjoyed it. Like, I just appreciate it for, like, even though it's a 4 hour movie, I've seen it 3 times this year or last year. Um, I just think, like, it was just so beautifully done, and I think what I loved about it so much was that, like, the fans made it happen, and Snyder, like, got his dream project done. I think that's what I found so beautiful about this movie, that it was more than a film, it was kinda like a work of art, which I'm not saying, like, all the other films were, but for me, that's how I took it.
Yeah, it was definitely the biggest surprise I would say of this year. Like the most surprising movie, like because of like I guess the stakes, like the kind of reputation but like it's renewed so much interest in, the DCEU, the Snyderverse. And so like it's kind of like it's also like, yeah, as a fan of the Justice League, it's like, oh wow, this really is the movie I've kind of always wanted to see, and I had no idea that it's kind of just been here the whole time.
Yeah, I agree. It was a big surprise. I got to be honest, going into watching this movie, I was fully expecting it to be complete garbage. Like that was my expectation. I was expecting to talk shit about it and make fun of it and just like talk more shit about DC. But guess what? It was actually pretty good. I don't think I loved it quite as much as you, Porfirio, but yeah, there's no question it has merit. There's some cool stuff in there, and it is worth a watch, no question.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what are some more of your guys' favorites that came out this year? Because there was a lot.
Yeah, there were a lot. I guess since we talked about the big DC movie, I guess what we could always we did just talk about this, and everyone's still talking about this movie. Um, there's always the big Marvel movie, Spider-Man. Everyone,
Everyone loved it. People are still watching it.
yeah, people still loving that movie.
Yeah, a box office sensation. It is crazy how much business this movie is making. This how much money this movie is making.
Like, where would you guys place this against other Marvel movies?
Like
Like,
that came out this year, or just in
no,
the
just in
MCU?
general. Like, how would you rank this against other Marvel movies generally?
Mm,
Like, where would you guys place this?
let's see. For me personally, just being a big Spider-Man fan and just seeing the other two Spider-Man in it, I would honestly put it like in my top five for sure. I
Same with
don't know.
me. Same with
I
me.
Yeah,
I would
same
need
here.
I would need to rank it what my other five would be, my other four, but definitely my top five.
I
Mhm.
might go a step further and put it in like top three. I think Winter Soldier, Iron Man 1, and No Way Home are the top three in my MCU list.
Yeah, that's probably I think mine. I would definitely put a top three. Probably number two. Like I think I like Infinity War, No Way Home. It is recency bias, so I'd have to sit on that for a little longer, you know.
Mhm.
And then number three, I don't know, might be Thor, probably Thor Ragnarok, or even or Winter Soldier.
Um,
Um,
it's so funny you talk about that movie because I mean we all saw all the Marvel movies together, but I think like watching that in theaters was a whole nother experience. Like we talked about it in our podcast. Like people cheered, people uh poppers in the theater, people were standing,
yeah,
and that was a great thing that just happened this year with just going back to the movies,
yeah,
like Henry said before, like people are tired of being cooked up and stuff, and we're just ready to go back to the movies and be in that community of like being with someone that you don't know, but you have like this like mutual feeling of either you laughed, you cry, and it was just really great being back in the movies and having that feeling.
yeah. The
Yeah,
movie experience was incredible, and it'll be interesting to see how this movie holds up upon like subsequent home viewings. Like I've seen Endgame like a zillion more times at home, right? And my perspective on that movie has changed over time. With No Way Home, we'll see. But right now, man, it is just riding high for me because of that in-person movie theater experience. It was just really something special, really
mhm.
something special. And as long as we're talking about No Way Home, I thought I'd bring up the other MCU movies because when No Way Home came out, I kind of felt like the MCU offerings of 2021 was a little bit more quantity than quality. So we talked about the shows being a little uneven, some of them ending not so great. And then with the movies, I felt it had been kind of uneven too. We'll get into disappointing movies, but Eternals was like at the top of my list in that department. Very disappointing. Black Widow was a little disappointing too. I definitely enjoyed the movie, but I felt like it could have been a lot better. Shang-Chi, I flat out loved. I really, really enjoyed that movie, and I don't want to gloss over that movie. That was a huge highlight for me this year. One of my top movies of the year, no question. That said, though, just the MCU as a whole was, like I said, a little bit more quantity than quality until No Way Home. And that movie was such a grand slam. It turned what was like what may have been a bit of a disappointing year for Marvel Studios into complete triumph. Oh my God, I felt so good after seeing this movie. I have seen it 3 times now, and it does hold up, and the magic is there every time.
Mhm.
And I just can't say enough. It's just a magical film. It really is. I can't say enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the MCU really they finished really strong this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree about that. Like, yeah. So welcome to the club, Henry. 3 times watcher Christian. Have you seen it 3 times?
Let's see. No, I only saw it twice. Only
That's
twice, but
it.
it was like 2 day within like 2 days of each other. Like I saw it once with you guys, and then like I I just told my friend like, hey, let's go see this movie. I really want to see it again. You
That's
haven't
what
seen it yet? Well, this is an excuse for me to see it again. Let's find the best tickets we can. And I remember searching for a while, but I managed to find them like late at night.
I mean, that's what happened with Henry too. He watched it what day like back to back.
Yeah. I saw an opening Thursday and then with you guys on Friday. Interestingly, my third viewing, this wasn't planned, but I saw it on December 28th, which just so happens to be Stanley's birthday. So
Wow.
kind of a
Oh.
interesting little coincidence there. So when I say watching that movie was magical, it really was in so many ways.
Mhm. Yeah, so besides Spider-Man, which was a great movie, I think like for me a big standout was Shang-Chi that came out this year.
Yes.
I think like when that movie was first announced, I don't think anybody thought how much of a hit it was going to be. Everybody was like, who is this character? And it was just so beautifully done. And I remember when like at the like be, like right before the movie was about to be released, like I had a lot of worries about it that you know it was like the time when the Delta surgent was rising, and like I didn't know if people were gonna go to the movies to go watch it, and like we're gonna go to another shutdown and all that kind of stuff. But the early reviews were just like, this movie's amazing, you have to watch it, it's so beautifully done and stuff. And I was blown away with it. It was just really great, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was some media talking about how Shang-Chi was going to be the first flop for the MCU. Wasn't that
That's
out there for a little bit?
Yeah, that's what economists, I think that's the right word. That's what they were saying about the movie. Yeah, again, because of possible shutdown because it's an unknown character. Um, the marketing behind Marvel wasn't as strong as, and I hate doing this, but comparing to like Black Panther, like Marvel wasn't like selling up like theaters for um like kids who like Asian kids who looked up to this character and stuff, and it wasn't receiving that kind of treatment. And so yeah, a lot of people were predicting it to be like a big flop. Anything like just the early reviews, and just remember like even like influencers were like, no, go out and support this movie, it's really great. um it's really beautifully done. And yeah, I was one of those people who was also on that boat when I watched it.
That's so cool. Yeah, like I think when I think of this movie, I just get this nice feeling. It's a really enjoyable movie, and um, the fact that it's kind of an underdog movie makes that feeling even better, right? Like the fact that a lot of people were writing it off, thinking people weren't going to show up. People did show up, and guess what? It was a really good movie, and it caught on. It captured people's attentions, and this character that very few people knew about, now a lot of people know about him, and he's like gonna be featured in the MCU for years to come. So it's a great success story. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I think when next time Shang-Chi shows up, or pretty much every time after this movie, I think we're gonna see him. We're thinking like, man, this guy better have the best action scene in the movie. Whenever we see him in a team up, if we see him on screen, you're like, okay, we better see some badass kung fu like we got in this movie. Like
Totally.
I will say, I think the Muni bus scene is probably the best action scene I think Marvel's ever done.
It's up there. Yeah, it's a great scene.
Hmm.
Mhm. So what are some more of your guys' favorite hits this year?
Let's see. So, let's see. I guess let's go into. I guess I think the cult favorite of this year, one I really really liked, and that was the Suicide Squad, the big Harley Quinn movie
The
this year.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad, the real Suicide Squad, not
Yep.
not that other movie. Forget about that. Yeah, James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Mhm.
This I think this movie is like I think it's a really like good direction for DC. I've noticed that this and Center Cut are both rated R, and I think that carves out a nice like area for them to be is like R-rated movies where they just kind of give the reins to the director and they just say go. We don't really have a big plan, just make the movie you want to make. Um, which is something they've largely held back on. And we're kind of known for getting cold feet and changing things at the last minute, but I think this is the year that they hopefully realize their mistake. And I think like between Zack Snyder's Justice League really giving its day and the Suicide Squad, I think DC is really like they've come back. As a DC fan, I'm like hyped for DC again. It's great.
Awesome.
I agree with Christian. As a new DC fan, I'm like rooting for them also.
Yeah, yeah. Their time has come.
Right. What about you, Henry? Any other last good hits that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I think I covered my top movies in terms of like geeky type stuff. No Way
Mhm.
Home, Shang-Chi, Dune, Godzilla versus Kong. I think those are the top four for me in that geek type movie category.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I wish Black Widow was on that list, but it's not. Um, yeah, I remember the anticipation for that movie was pretty. It was pretty huge. Also,
Mhm.
Much like how we were really anticipating WandaVision. Black Widow was the first MCU movie in a long, long time, right? And yeah, the expectation and anticipation was kind of through the roof, and it delivered on some of that, but ultimately, I think it was just kind of marginally good. I would say it was good. You know, I still recommend it, but not on my best of the year list.
Okay. And so the next movie I'm gonna point out is we're gonna kind of segue into the not so movies that we didn't enjoy. But this was personally one of my other favorites this year that came out, which was The Internals. Um, I'm like the small minority that enjoyed this film. um, I think like yeah, like I had enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good like set of heroes that were really awesome and fresh, and the graphics were really awesome and beautiful. And I can understand why some people didn't like it. I have the same concerns about them introducing way too many new characters. The storylines involved were it was just a lot for 2.5 hours. Like it should have somehow been shortened. Um, but I know for we've had in one of our podcast episodes, this was a movie that was definitely divided us
It
as a
did.
group.
Yep.
And so yeah, let's segue into not the lows of 2021 when it came to movies.
I'll stand in
Okay.
solidarity with your unpopular opinion of Porfirio. So I'm not going to bring up Eternals since I had an unpopular opinion about Hawkeye.
Well, okay, maybe since you brought up Eternals,
Mhm,
I'll say my last word on Eternals.
mhm,
Probably not of all time, but for now. But yeah, I did see this movie twice, so it's it wasn't just a case of like, oh, I was tripping out for a night. No, to me, this movie is legit garbage. I'm not pulling any punches. This is my honest opinion, and I just think it's terrible. I'm not going to go into detail because we did a whole episode on it, but I do think it's garbage. And the one thing I wanted to add was something I didn't bring up on our recap episode. I thought I might bring it up here because it's kind of funny. Um, like No Way Home, I saw Eternals in a similar way. I saw it on opening weekend with a friend, and then I saw it subsequently with you guys. So that initial viewing was at the Alamo Drafthouse, which I love, and I had mentioned that it's kind of like a film geek, film snob kind of audience, and there was there was a guy there who definitely fit the bill there. Like he was definitely like a film snob type, and I could tell he was not enjoying the movie at all. And he was kind of voicing what I was feeling. So I was just kind of internalizing everything. But throughout the movie, I could just hear him going, ha, oh, oh boy, like that kind of thing. And like I said, he was voicing what I was feeling. And then at the very end, when the credits come up, um, you're not the only one, Porfirio. Some people did enjoy this movie. So there was like a smattering of applause, right? But this guy who was like, he was pretty close to me. I think he was just a couple rows in front of me. He just does this, like one of those raspberries, And I thought it was pretty hilarious. And like I said, he was voicing my internal feelings about this movie, and yeah, that's pretty much my last word on Eternals. It is my worst movie of the year. Not my only like huge disappointment in the movie category, but it is top of the list for me.
So not Henry, tell us how you really feel now. What about you, Christian?
Um, so I think let's see. There were two movies that I think I really didn't like. I guess the first like true comic book movie was Venom: Let There Be Carnage. I wasn't on that episode, so I guess I'll give my piece here. And that I kind of giggled my way through like the movie. I actually like kind of enjoyed it on some level, but I felt like I was like laughing at the movie more than laughing with the movie. I think it was very ridiculous. It was like a really dumb script, really bad dialogue. It's kind of just held up by Tom Hardy. Somehow he kind of just makes it work in some spots. But even then, it was just kind of so ridiculous. Like Eddie Brock and Venom like breaking up, and like Venom going to a rave in order to find friends. Like just Venom as the symbiote going to a rave.
Mhm.
Um, the Carnage stuff was really dumb. Out of nowhere. Carnage's powers were all over the place. It should have been rated R.
Yeah.
Like how he gets the symbiote's really dumb. You know, like there's such a list I think with Venom. Let There Be Carnage of like what didn't work and why it didn't work. They're like, yeah, 1 out of 5, but it leans into that 1 out of 5, so I'll give it that.
It didn't try to be anything more than 1 out of 5.
Exactly, yeah. I'll give it that. I did enjoy it on that level. But I think if I saw it a different time in a different headspace, I'd be like, "Oh, this is terrible. This is
Did you
dog shit."
did you, did you watch it in theaters?
I did, yeah. I did. There was a few people in there. It wasn't like completely empty. But yeah, I did, and I paid money for this movie.
I know. And you by the end you're probably like, I want my money back. What was this?
Well, like I said, I enjoyed it on like oh, that was pretty dumb.
uh, let's see, what's a movie that for me. Okay, so I just saw this on New Year's Eve. It wasn't the worst movie that came out to me last year, but I was kind of a letdown, which was The Matrix 4.
Yeah.
Like, I think, I kind of, took your guys's opinions to I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind, but I didn't let it like I don't feel like I let it jeopardize my own opinion, but I definitely do know what you guys meant, how like it had a strong beginning and there was definitely potential about like knowing reality versus being in the matrix and this use of social media about like what's fake and what's real. But as you watch it, the storyline is just freaking ridiculous. The storyline was stupid
Yeah.
about saving Trinity and everything. But I do appreciate like, I think, we've talked about this so many times, but fan service and like having old characters come back or um lack of return of characters like Morpheus and Agent Smith, but like this like callback to like stuff that you would only know if you watch like the other Matrix movies and stuff. um it wasn't like the best way it could have been shown, like No Way Home, but it wasn't terrible either. And um would I watch it again in theaters? Probably not. Would I watch it on HBO Max for free? Yes, for sure. And yeah, that's my opinion with this movie.
Yeah, I had a similar take. I was disappointed. I thought it was pretty bad. Yeah, I think a common theme is coming up about unnecessary projects. Like this whole thing felt very unnecessary. Like I would argue Matrix 2, 3, and 4 are all unnecessary. Like the first Matrix is a stone cold classic. It's great,
Classic. Mhm.
really great. But
Mhm.
to me, I could do without 2, 3, and 4 entirely. And 4 really felt like they were just going back to the well again. And like I said, totally unnecessary. Like this movie didn't need to happen. Yeah, in a world without Eternals, this might have been my least favorite movie of the year. I found it uh, boring. Yeah, I didn't get much of anything out of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was like eh, like pretty bad. I think I'm with you guys for first half. I'm like, yeah, okay, where's this going? Where's this going? I like this. Like, there's like over meta commentary. We're going back to the Matrix. What does the Matrix mean? Oh, it means bullet time. But I
Yeah.
think at least what 2 and 3 have is like, at least they have good action. The action in this movie is terrible.
Hmm.
That's pretty
All
bad.
Neo does is like that like weird force push thing where he like throws his hands up.
Yeah.
That's like his one move throughout the
Hmm.
movie, and like you're expecting like some good kung fu choreography, but it never shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's funny you mentioned Venom, Let There Be Carnage not really trying to be a good movie. I felt like Matrix Resurrections did try. It tried to be like a serious good movie, and for that reason it's almost like worse, right? Because it's it just fails miserably, right? So it's just kind of a sad thing, because I love Keanu Reeves. I love a lot of the cast in this movie, but yeah, it just doesn't work.
Hmm. So what else? What else came out this year that you guys were just like made you guys slap your face and be like, why?
Ooh, I got one. I got
What?
so this isn't like a comic book movie, but it has a lot of DC characters. And that movie
What? I feel like.
Space Jam:
Uh-huh.
A New
Oh
Legacy.
yeah.
Oh man, I really did not like this movie. I thought that I loved the original Space Jam. Grew up on it, and like I was like it came out. I was drinking, with some friends, and like, it's like let's just turn on a movie, and we turned on this movie just because it just came out at the time. It was free, and yeah, it was so much worse than I thought it could be. The whole movie's an ad for HBO Max because you just see like this or not metaverse, but serververse. Um, of just different Warner Brothers properties that they go to, of like, okay, here's the Wonder Woman world, here's the Matrix reference, here's the Game of Thrones reference. And like when they're playing basketball, which isn't even real basketball, it's like a game that like
uh, Christian,
I accidentally muted myself there, but
you
basically
you're getting your emotions are letting you take over.
like yeah, I know. I just let out a big string of swear words right there that I had to mute. But like where was I? So like like you're supposed to be watching this basketball game, but like it's not real basketball. It's like this weird like video game version where so it's just kind of like whatever, and that's like hard to follow, and like they put in like weird like bad cosplay versions of all these different Warner Brothers characters, and you're just kind of like, oh hey, there's that character, oh there's that character, and you realize you're not watching the game. You're not watching the plot, you're just watching the background to be, hey, I recognize that, oh hey, there's that, oh hey, there's that, oh, Batman, I guess. So
Yeah,
yeah, that movie was bad.
yeah. I am totally gonna agree with you. It just felt like a knockoff version of Ready Player One.
Yeah, you got that right.
I don't think I hated it as much as you guys, but that is a good point about what's going on in the background. Like, never have I had that experience before where I'm watching what's going on in the background more than what I'm watching in the foreground, because they're throwing in so many WB characters all over the place in this movie that your eyeballs are constantly just all over the screen, right? So it's a pretty
Mhm.
strange experience, and it's kind of a movie like no other. And I'm not gonna say it's a masterpiece, and it is like all over the place. It's just kind of a big mess.
Mhm. So Henry, what was another movie at on your list?
Yeah, I think I had more than usual like shitty movie listings here. um yeah, we actually did a couple episodes um on these. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I feel like that was pretty disappointing because I thought Conjuring 1 and 2 were pretty fucking awesome, you know. To this day, I think Conjuring 1 and 2 are number 1 and number 2 in scariest movies of all time for me. And they really work as horror movies. This third Conjuring, while it is scary, I will not deny that. I just thought it was a shitty ass movie, so that was disappointing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
same. Like, I think the best experience from that movie was not even the movie itself. I think it was just the fact that we got Christian to watch it. I think that was
yes.
I think I got more enjoyment out of that than
I hate you
actually
guys.
watching the movie.
I hate you guys.
Good times.
Uh-huh.
The
But
other one in a similar vein, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat came
mhm.
out this year, and I am a Mortal Kombat fan. I was hugely disappointed in this movie. It just did not work. There was no martial arts tournament, and how can you have a Mortal Kombat movie without the tournament? I don't know. So it just failed on a lot of levels. The action didn't really work for me, and just disappointment. One other one I wanted to bring up is kind of a forgotten movie at this point, I think, but Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes also came out this year.
And it's forgotten for a good reason.
Yes. Well, rewind a little bit. I am a big GI Joe fan, and Snake Eyes is a really beloved character to me.
Mhm.
Um, uh, let's see a little bit of history here. We're all veterans of the Silicon Valley Comic Con, and the first year they came to San Jose, I think it was 2016. Um, Among the guests to that convention were Jeremy Renner, aka Hawkeye, and Ray Park, aka Darth Maul. So I was deciding, like, who do I want to meet? I was like looking at the photo ops, right? And you would think I would have wanted to meet Jeremy Renner, right? This big Marvel fan here, right? But no, I wanted to meet Ray Park. And I wanted to meet Ray Park not because he played Darth Maul, not because he played Toad, but because he played Snake Eyes in the original G.I. Joe movie. That's how
Mhm.
big a Snake Eyes fan I am. I played with G.I. Joe toys in the 80s, and I collect G.I. Joe comics, and I'm just a huge fan of the character. And I was looking forward to this movie. Henry Golding, love him, Crazy Rich Asians, excellent actor. Um, this movie was terrible. Like, we haven't talked about it on this podcast, but it doesn't make much sense at all. And bottom line, the action is very poorly done. It's hard to follow, and it was a pretty miserable experience watching this movie. And yes, it is on my list of worst movies of the year.
Mhm. Yeah, going back to what you were saying about Mortal Kombat, that was just a big letdown. Like
Yeah.
yeah, what they never said Mortal Kombat in the movie. and
Yeah, that's right.
and it's so funny, like, Venom, Let There Be Carnage should take notes for this, but the blood and gore, it was there. If
Yeah,
but
it was rated
but
R.
it was rated R and the fatalities were there, but the storyline didn't make sense. Some of the characters that they use were confusing, like the whole new character, and then um yeah, I don't know. It just looked like a big mess, and that was pretty disappointing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, any last movies you guys want to dish on before moving to our next category?
Huh. Well, I guess so I guess before we move on, I ranked all of our all the comic book movies
Mhm.
this year. We talked about it a little before. So, do you guys also have rankings you guys would want to share?
Mm, I feel like I can only have rankings for like the Marvel and DC. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a formal ranking. Why don't you give us some of your list, Christian?
Okay, here's my formal ranking for all the comic book adaptions plus anime adaptions because anime had a really big year. Um, so coming up at the bottom is Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Um, and then next up is Eternals. Um, coming in second to last. Coming up after that is this is my first anime movie on this list. So long ass title. So it's called Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time. I loved the
Mhm.
original series, but the new movies are kind of dog shit. I think that it's only up 3 points higher than the other two, just because I kind of like spending time with the characters. But
Mhm.
this movie sucks. Um, and then after that is Black Widow.
Ouch.
Um, yeah, I think enjoyed it the first time, but like I think like it kind of just really tanks hard in that third act.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then after that is I guess two movies. It's two the Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Um, I liked the real big fan of the original comic, but I don't think it translates perfectly one to one, just with the way Jeff Loeb writes comics into a movie. But I think if you were going to do a movie about the Long Halloween, I'm glad that they kind of just went all in on it. Um, but I do find that the better version of the Long Halloween is kind of just the Dark Knight in a way. Um, so next up is My Hero Academia: World Heroes Mission. Kind of just a solid movie all around. It's kind of just an anime movie that doesn't really try anything different, but it's executed really, really well. Um, and then coming up next is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Okay.
As we said, like really solid, probably the best action scene in a Marvel movie. A lot of fun, but I also think it also kind of takes a dip in that in that final act, kind of like which seems to be this weird running theme for Marvel as we've
Yes.
been talking about this year.
Yeah.
Um, and so next up after that is Demon Slayer Mugen Train. I think this movie's fucking awesome. I think this movie is like it's kind of weird how well it works because it's essentially season 2 truncated into a movie instead of it and like instead of being an offshoot, which sounds like it's kind of a recipe for disaster, but like it's really good. It's kind of technically a 2020 movie, but because of the way COVID worked, it didn't release into the US until this year. Um, but this movie is balls to the wall like action, like some of the best animation I've ever seen. Um, and so that brings me into my top three, which are all kind of number one in their own way, I think. Um, and I didn't really know how to organize these top three, so it's probably going to change. So coming up is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Big
Yes.
epic movie. The movie I guess I've always wanted to see, but never got around to seeing. Biggest surprise of the year, and a 4-hour epic. Coming up next is the biggest movie. I think the biggest movie of the year, Spider-Man. Um,
hmm
Great, like we've already said so much about it. Best theater experience, great movie. Um, and then, but I think my number one favorite movie of the year is actually going to be The Suicide Squad. I think like I said, it's the cult hit movie of the year. I think that um, I'm probably going to end up watching Spider-Man more. I think uh, that and Justice League are bigger, more epic movies. But this one, for some reason, just spoke to me. This movie, I just really enjoyed the dark humor, the like really Z-list cast, and um like the little more brutal R-rated action that all kind of come together to make this almost like grindhouse movie. It's kind of the B movie to Justice League's A movie in a
Yeah.
sense. Like I said, I think it's going to go down as the cult movie of superhero movies.
Damn, Christian, I did not expect that number one from you.
Like I said, like the top 3 are like movies that like all kind of make up number 1 in their own way, you know?
Mhm,
I think that like I kind of flip-flop between the two. And I
mhm.
think if I might end up reordering it a little differently if we ever do like, oh, what are your favorite superhero movies of all time? If we ever rank them, that ranking might change, but
Mhm.
I think I'm happy with that.
Okay.
So that's mine. What about you guys?
Well, that's a
Yeah.
solid list. I just wanted to say
Thank you.
it's cool, the top three, because they're so different, like and this is kind of a theme, like having different look and feel to projects. But Spider-Man No Way Home versus the Suicide Squad versus Zack Snyder's Justice League, I can't think of three more different movies right there, right? There's like zero connective tissue going on with any of those three movies. And I think it's great that it speaks to uh, the diverse storytelling going on with superhero movies. Like, people are wondering, like, why are superhero movies the only movies that are making money right now? Well, this highlights it, because there are so many different types of stories to tell here, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's great that um, superhero movies can be so incredibly diverse in this way, right? So that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have an explicit list, um, but I think I can safely say that my top three of the year would be Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi, and Dune. I think those are the top three for me there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In that order, or
I think in that order. And I mean, I don't want to disparage Shang-Chi or Dune, but Spider-Man No Way Home, like, a lot higher. like number one, like, easily. It's up there. To me, it's just an all-timer. It really is.
Mhm. Let's see. For me, just based on comic book adapted movies that came out this year or last year, um, at the bottom of my list would be the opposite of Christian, which was the Suicide Squad. That would be at the bottom of my list. Then
Hmm.
Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, the Snyder Cut, and then Spider-Man No Way Home.
all right. Huh. I feel like that's more shocking because you're like the Harley Quinn fan among us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, yeah, I don't know. Like for me, even Harley Quinn couldn't save that movie for me.
Hmm.
It was not to say like the Suicide Squad wasn't good, or it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. Like I would still probably take that over. Um. Oh wait, no. Okay, never mind. It was not the last movie. Venom is below the Suicide Squad. So there we go. I don't know if that means anything,
I don't
but
know. It's like, oh man, I feel like that's the hotter take right there.
I think
um,
Venom 2 can barely be called a movie. Maybe that's why you left it off your list.
right.
It's barely a movie at all.
It's so bad you forgot.
Right.
Hmm.
So now we move on to our final category. How could we not be a comic podcast if we don't talk about comics? Yay. So yeah, so what's some good your favorite comic storyline that you guys read this year?
I can give a few of mine. So with comics, I've mentioned this in the past, but um, usually my comic reading is a little bit behind. So my comics picks are typically not comic releases of that year, right?
Mhm.
So a good example is um, I read a Spider-Man series from quite a while ago. It's called Spider-Man Reign from 2006. So this is quite a while ago.
Okay.
Read it for the first time this year or last year, and was really blown away. It is Marvel's take, well, the Spider-Man take on the Dark Knight Returns. It's a very similar format. It's a 4-issue series, and it's Spider-Man in his later years. And it takes place in kind of a dystopian New York City with this like authoritarian authoritarian state of police, and they're known as the Rain, hence Spider-Man Reign. And it's really dark and kind of twisted. It's written and illustrated by Kari Andrews, and it's really cool. It's really out there and different, and it is kind of shamelessly a Marvel telling of Dark Knight Returns. There's even a character in it called Miller Jansen, which is a play on Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, who are the creators of that Dark Knight series. And yeah, I definitely recommend this. Is like my favorite Spider-Man read of the year, and I did read a lot of Spider-Man this year, so that's a good one. Also, I just read this one, Rorschach. They just released
Mhm. Mhm.
the collection for Rorschach. This is a pretty recent release. It started up in 2020, and like I said, they just released the issues 1 to 12 collection very recently, like I think just last month, and it was really cool. You guys know me, I do love Watchmen, and this is
Mhm.
another great Watchmen story in a very different way. It's not a superhero story at all. It's more of a detective story, and pretty interesting stuff. It gets into um, some political espionage type territory. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. An interesting read for sure. And just one other pick. Basically, anytime the writer Ed Brubaker has a release, it makes my like comics picks of the year. He's just awesome. So for 2021, this was a 2021 release. It's called Friend of the Devil. It's his continuation on his Reckless series, and it's great. He writes, and Sean Phillips again illustrates for him. They're a great combination, and yeah, it's awesome. Like when it comes to crime comics, Ed Brubaker is king. So highly recommend Friend of the Devil.
Cool. Great picks. What about you, Christian? Do you have any good picks?
All right. I wasn't as into reading comics this year. But I guess one that I was about earlier that ended up becoming a big hot topic in DC Comics towards the end of the year. So I picked up old issues of Super Sons in like trades, which is Jonathan Kent as Superboy and Damian Wayne as Robin as they go on like kind of the more kiddie version. It's like kind of like Batman, Superman. Um, but you also kind of watch them like grow up, get into like kid kind of shenanigans mixed with your superhero shenanigans. Like you can kind of see where it's going, but it's fun, lighthearted action. And I actually do really like Damian Wayne. Um, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I was like at the beginning of the year before the big controversy with DC and them aging up Jonathan Kent. Um, and giving him a boyfriend. I honestly haven't read any of the any of his solo series, which is where a lot of that is focused. So I guess I really don't have anything to say about that. But I will say I actually did like him as a kid. I liked the kid Superboy paired with the kid Robin. It was, and I really like seeing Clark Kent man as a dad, and same with Batman as a dad. I think that's a nice dynamic for them to fill out. Um, I guess I will say it would have been nice if they just kept if they kind of filled that out more, and I would have loved to see more of that dynamic. Um, and I think it's a nice addition to the like their characters, you know. So I don't know. I like Super Sons. It was nice and lighthearted.
Cool.
Cool. Let's see some storylines that 2021, I read a lot more comics than I have than years previous. Um, I think just since there's a comic book store near where I live, I just like went there like every Wednesday during the new releases. But some storylines that stood out to me this year was Trial of Magneto, which um it's about they like mutants, they find like the body of Scarlet Witch and they're trying to find out who killed her, and using their powers they investigate like clues of like what happened, and all the evidence points to Magneto being the one who to have killed her and stuff. Um, but then things kind of take like a twist, odd twist of events when like Scarlet Witch is able to use her powers in the afterlife to communicate with like old woman Scarlet Witch and be able to like resurrect herself back to life or something like that. It's really interesting though. I really do recommend it if you guys ever get a chance to read it. Um, Another one that popped up was a Marvel event that's still going on right now. I think it's called uh, Devil's Reign, which is basically like the Kingpin. He is now the mayor of New York, and he's trying to implement like this like no superhero, no vigilante initiative, very similar to like the storyline of Civil War. And he has like his task force, which is basically like the Thunderbolts of like Doctor Octopus and the Taskmaster, who are um like capturing superheroes and putting them in jail and stuff like that. Um, it's still only there's only been 2 issues released so far, but it's pretty good. And the last comic book storyline that I have to give a shout out to is this Harley Quinn storyline. I think it's called Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy on like the Kill Bang tour, something like that. But if you guys have seen the Harley Quinn animated series, it's a continuation of the animated series. So I love the show. I love the writing. It's very funny, and the comic books just really live and continue that type of humor. And so I love. It's like, yeah, probably my favorite comic book storyline that came out last year. I highly recommend it if you guys love the TV show.
And I did, so I should check it out.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, go Henry.
I don't know. I was just about to say it's great. It's always great to get comic book recommendations. Love hearing them.
Yeah, yeah. So, did you guys have any comic books that you were disappointed with this year?
Comics never disappoint me. It's actually kind of true. Like I think, well, I shouldn't say that, but for the most part, I would say with comics, there's always something you can get out of them.
Hmm.
It's always worthwhile reading comics.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I didn't read a lot this year or read a lot of comics this year. So like I don't know if I could point out any true like disappointments. There actually was another one I read that actually really did surprise me. I only picked up an issue or two. Um but they started doing a Magic the Gathering series. Boom Comics is doing it.
Hmm.
And I really like Magic the Gathering. Um and so I actually thought I was like kind of surprised. I remember by the issue, and I think at the time I was just gonna wait for it to like do a run and pick up trades and all that, but I kind of just forgot about it. Um, but the stories like kind of involves like different guilds all around this like larger city called Ravnica, and these people like within the guilds within the and like a little like a plot here and there. It's actually kind of similar to Arcane in a way, with its kind of with a kind of that look and vibe, and I guess also based off a game. This is a card game, but yeah, I actually do recommend Magic, the Magic Boom series if you're interested. Much better than the old like books the old like young adult novels I used to read once upon a time.
Nice.
So yeah, so I think it's fair to say, well, in a few words, how would you guys describe 2021 when it came to comic book media?
I did have some thoughts here. You know, I alluded to the fact that during the COVID pandemic, pop culture has really helped us get through things, right? A movie
Mhm.
like Godzilla versus Kong is a silly monster action movie, but it can help us, like we're going through some tough times, and Godzilla versus Kong is just one thing. Like the greatness of No Way Home, it really goes beyond just the movie. The movie really is great, no question about it. Spider-Man fans will love it. Superhero movie fans will love it. But there's something else going on here too. We're going through a tough time. Like this Omicron variant we're going through right now is really tough because we really thought we were done with this thing, and we're not. Clearly, we're not. Um, but sitting in the movie theater for Spider-Man No Way Home, just a simple 2.5 hours escape from our bleak reality
Mhm.
was really special. You know, um, like this this era has taken a toll on all of us, and like mental health wise, we got issues. Like this is something that's going to affect us all for the rest of our
Mhm.
lives. And it seems silly to say, but you know just going to see Spider-Man No Way Home during this time, I keep saying it, but I will never forget it because I feel like it's one of these things that has helped get me through it. And Spider-Man isn't the only thing. All this stuff, like with COVID, it seems silly that we're valuing pop culture, but it's true. Pop culture is helping us get through this stuff. So on one hand, we've all had to, I don't know, reprioritize our lives. We've had to put some things on pause, consider our health, consider surviving, right? But on the other hand, I don't know about you guys, but like I need this stuff more than ever. I've always considered myself a fan of comics and comics related content, but I need this stuff more than I've ever needed it. And it's crazy, but I'm really finding that to be the truth now.
Mhm.
Yeah, this year, like, we got so much of it too. So it's good that you need it because it's here in
Yeah.
droves.
Yes.
Mhm.
All of it.
Yeah. What about you, Christian? How would you
Like,
summarize 2021?
like it really is nice to return to it. It does feel like we've gotten 2 years worth in one year because there was just so much. And I think this year was um, it was probably yeah, it's like the most comic book content I've ever seen in terms of like movies and TV and all that. Um, and it's great to see. I love Marvel. Marvel's great, and like, of course, like, we were talking about this before, and I heard a number somewhere where it's like they took home 30% of like box office revenue. But I will say that it seems like this year, a lot of other companies kind of really made some big moves, and I think going forward we're going to see a much wider range of comic companies putting out great content. Whereas like the last 10 years, we would largely just be talking about Marvel and just Marvel because Marvel was so dominant. Anytime I talk about my favorite, if I go back and list my favorite comic book movies of years past, I'd probably just think of, oh, what MCU movie came out that year? Like,
Hmm.
Yeah.
oh, DC put out a movie, it was probably terrible. Whereas now it's like wow, they put out a few movies I really really liked, and I'm really happy to be a DC fan again. As well as we talked about Invincible, like Image put out something really dope. I talked about anime movies, like anime movies were huge this year, bigger than they've ever been, and I think moving forward, anime is going to be a much bigger slice of that comic book pie that we're going to see. So I think this year was overall great. And then there's a few movies on here I think that are all time favorites.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For me, yeah, like echoing off what both of you guys said, I think this year we were, really spoiled when it came to um comic book content, both in the movies and online streaming. Um, it's just looking back, it's just so crazy how much I guess like this year, like we evolved in some ways. Like at the beginning of the year, we were like watching WandaVision on like Zoom. Like we still did the Zoom movie nights and everything, and uh we were yeah we were the vaccines still weren't rolling out and everything, so we were all still we were being cautious and everything. And then like as the year went by, that's when like streaming service like HBO Max was definitely just like releasing their content on that line. Like Henry said, Godzilla vs. King Kong was like the biggest like movie that came out for the year on that streaming service. Then you got like Mortal Kombat and Dune and The Matrix, following the year. And then in May was when we had that return to the movie feeling with Black Widow. Or no, that was July. That was in July. Um, but then that's when it felt like things were starting to get back to normal. But then we had the Delta variant, and now we're going to the Omicron variant. But it's just so crazy, like how, again, echoing what Henry was saying, how like movies and streaming services have helped us like um get away from reality for like a few hours, um like during the week, and just like uh be in this like realm of geekiness and making things feel normal, and just kind of like have that optimism for the future, that like things are will eventually go back to normal. And um you know uh that may not happen in 2021, but 2022, there's gonna be good stuff coming out and good vibes to move forward with. um so yeah, uh that's what I have to say about 2021.
Well said. Yeah, I like what you said about that sense of normalcy, because nothing about this year has felt normal, except doing some stuff that we used to do, right? Get
Mhm.
together and watch a Marvel movie. Like, I think um we all had some issues with the Black Widow movie, but the experience was so great because it was the first time in a long time that we all got together and sat down in a movie theater and got to watch a new Marvel movie, right? So that was cool.
Mhm.
And yeah, a lot of the stuff we've mentioned was a great experience because it gave us that sense of normalcy. And it's a sense of normalcy that is lacking in so many other aspects of our lives, right? So there's some comfort there.
Mhm. For sure.
So maybe we can end on something you brought up before we started recording, Christian, about the decade. So we're in a new decade now, right? Um, yeah. What was your what was the point you had about that, Christian?
Well, I guess if 2020 nothing really happened, so that doesn't count. But this is essentially the first real like year of the 2020s, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of like comic book movies, where do you see the genre going over the next, until 2030?
So I can start this. Um, it's funny, like how Christian said in his comments, like if you look back in like the 2010s decade and you ask what's your favorite comic book movie, probably someone's going to say a Marvel movie because that's what dominated the scene. If not a Marvel movie, a DC movie. But now I just feel like we're getting so much uh like third party comic book stuff with like Image and um Dark Horse and stuff. You have shows like Invincible and Umbrella Academy, um Dune, who are just like pumping out this content that like is like competing against Marvel and DC. And I think that's just really exciting. And um I don't know, for me it just kind of shows that like like comic books are a great form of literature that people essentially say like it's just like a kids thing, but obviously they're the ones making like the big bucks with all this stuff. Like you said, Christian, like Marvel made like 30% of the box office revenue last year, so there's money to be made with these comic book adaptations.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said about, the diversity in the projects, Porfirio,
Mhm.
because yeah, for the previous 10 years, the answer to what is your favorite comic book movie, it's going to be a Marvel movie, right? It's just a question of which one. But for the next decade, I could see it being a toss up. Like, it could be a DC movie. It might be a Marvel movie. It might be an Image movie. Like, you don't know. Like, that's where this is all headed, right? Uh, Comic book adaptations are running wild right now. Like tons of comic book adaptations are in development. So who knows what is in store for the rest of the decade, right? Interesting side note, though, Christian, you brought up this market dominance of Marvel movies. While comic book media is booming, it really is Marvel that is extremely dominant, right? So yes, we're gonna see a lot of other non-Marvel projects coming out. It really is Marvel that seems to be at the forefront, right? I think Spider-Man No Way Home really put their hammer down on the entire movie industry and just showed that Marvel has this incredible clout. Like, it's pretty wild, the box office from this movie, right? What it's doing during a pandemic is just insane. You look at pretty much all the other movie releases right now, they are tanking. Movies, like high quality movies, like Guillermo del Toro just released a movie that looks really cool. No one saw that movie, you know. And the list goes on about like these high quality movies that just no one is watching, but everyone went to go see Spider-Man. And the market dominance is pretty incredible, and that might be something of concern, because if it's just all Marvel all the time, I don't know. Like, I keep looking for this moment when Marvel finally collapses. I thought Eternals might be a sign of it, but then, Spider-Man comes out a month later and just completely destroys, right? So who knows when the end will be, but I don't know. It is a little concerning when at the movies it's all Marvel. At home on your TV, it's all Marvel. You're reading Marvel comic books, you're playing with Marvel toys, you're playing Marvel video games. Like, I don't know. It might be a little out of hand, So that'll be interesting to see for the rest of this decade, right? This incredible Marvel dominance that is happening at the very beginning of the decade. Where is that going to go? Is it just going to continue to grow and become more dominant, or is there going to be like some kind of jump the shark type moment? We'll see.
Hmm. Oh, that's a good point. Like, will Marvel like essentially fall?
Yeah.
Because even Eternals did pretty well, like financially worldwide, and that one didn't do as well on like say Rotten Tomatoes. But like, I think like personally, I will say like this year it did feel like a little too much at times. And I do feel like we all know the Marvel formula. It's like very tried and true, but there was a couple times I thought like, I think it's like kind of waning a little. Um, but like at the same time, like they're doing so well. It's fueled by Disney, and I also think that like Marvel is really trying to break away from that formula. I thought they broke away really, really well in Spider-Man. Um, but they were really trying that with Eternals. They did a little bit with Shang-Chi, not as much as far as its structure, but it executed it really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I will say that like while Marvel is so dominant, I do think they are in a bit of hot water here. I think that they know they have to like switch things up. They have to change. They have to they have to try a lot of new things. Um, but hey, that's good. I think it's good that that they do you know rumor that they do feel like they're in a bit of hot water and they have to really change the format of the way the movies are. They've kind of gone more into Disney Plus to tell like longer form stories, um, and going into something much weirder in the world of comic books, which is the multiverse, and it's paid off really well for them so far. And so, and they also have to move forward without Iron Man and Cap, kind of the two big figureheads of the MCU. Iron Man, Cap, and unfortunate rest in peace, Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, the other like big guy I thought who was really going to dominate the 2020s. But but I think Marvel will stay. They've done so well this year. It's hard to imagine Marvel not being there in 2030. At least in some form. Who knows if it'll be as large as it is, as with as many movies, Disney Plus series, so on and so forth. Um, because I do think DC's really like starting to really strike back. I think they made some really good moves this year. They've kind of come off, you know, uh, the last decade where we just kind of continuously like made fun of them for being the company that makes the bad movies, and it feels like we're past the memes of them being, oh well, Warner Brothers should sell DC to Disney. We're It feels like we're finally moving past that, so I think they'll be more a part of the pie. I think Image, with Invincibles, had made their big moves. We have The Boys also as
Yeah.
well from, I forget the company. That might also be Boom, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, and so I think a lot of film companies are going to try to grasp at any comic book property that they can get and try to turn that into a movie, a franchise, a show, which is great. I think as a comic book fan, it's going to be like a really great decade. And like I said, I'm going to go back to Demon Slayer Mugen Train. I feel like if there's any movie to look at of like what the next trend is going to be over the next 10 years, I think it's actually going to be that movie. Um, I'm going to put my money on it because that is Japan's most successful movie
Mm.
now. And so I think that a movie did really, really great last year, and it continued to success this year. So I think movies that is going to be a much bigger part of the pie as well. I think Shonen Jump is the new comic company to look at going forward.
Excellent take. Yeah, actually, you brought up something that sort of sparked something in my brain, and that's the multiverse, right? I think the multiverse can be a decade defining aspect of comics related content, right? Um, Certainly in the MCU, but I kind of wonder with the success of No Way Home, are there going to be other attempts at multiverse type stuff? Are there going to be other attempts at bringing out actors reprising old roles, that sort of thing? Um, we might see some of that stuff going on too. But we've gone pretty long here. I think we can do a what we're looking forward to in 2022 episode at a later time. But for now, I think we can put a bow on 2021 and call it a wrap. With that, we
I
can
see
wrap.
what you did there.
You saw what I did? You like that? All right. With that, we can wrap up this episode. This is farewell from Christian, Porfirio, and Henry.